Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I thought I would start talking about books that intimidate me, but I still want to read them and try them out. I want to meet the challenge of these intimidating books. So let me start with the book that kind of inspired this video. And that was Moby Dick by Herman Melville. So I recently watched Jennifer Brooks' vlog where she talked about reading this book when she went to the beach in North Carolina. And I can't remember if she bought it there or if she brought it with her. I'm not sure. Which, by the way, I am a little jealous of, because whenever I got on vacation, we've never gone to the bookstore before, because I don't think anyone in my family is really interested in doing that and wasting any time doing that. But I would love to do that one day, to, like, during one of our vacations, go to an actual bookstore. But anyway, and so just, like, before I had attempted to read this once, and it was the Norton Classics editions. I think it's an edition that my sister had for school, and which the cover's not bad. It's just not pretty. It's not appealing to me, and it might, and so I had decided, I just was like, after reading a couple pages, like, I'm not interested in this, and it probably did not help that it was the minuscule print, and there's just a lot to read, and it wasn't pretty to look at. It was kind of boring, and I think, as much as I hate to say it, I think that was part of it. So I just was like, I'm never gonna read this, and I was also thinking I wouldn't be interested in this. Is one of the situations where one of my reasons sometimes is I don't know if what the book is about will interest me. And, of course, I was, early teen years at the time. So that might have contributed to why I just dismissed this book. So I recently, like I said, I was watching Jennifer Brooks' vlog where she got the book and she read it and she just loved it. She just fell in love with Moby Dick and just the way she talked about it. So it just got so I was like, I kind of kept it in the back of my mind. But then one day, the other day, when I was at the bookstore, I was like, what the heck? I'm going to buy it. And it was either between the Flexibound, which is what the World Classics are, with the titles and with the quotes engraved on the cover, and they're each different colors, which I think are really pretty. And then, I was tempted to buy it, because add it to my collection. And it's like more durable and a little bit bigger than a mass market. So they're nice. And it was between that one or the deluxe penguin edition, which had this retro looking cover. It had the deckled edges and the French flaps, which I really liked. That one was a bit more expensive. And then there was this one. And so as you can see, I kind of settled in the middle ground. And I love this one. First, the cover looks like a painting. I think it's really pretty. I do like the teal and the yellow. And this is the same kind of edition that my copy of Great Expectations is as well. So it's really pretty. So I started reading it, and I was thinking, this is really not that hard. I mean, I haven't got to the part that people say is boring, but it's actually kind of interesting. I mean, there was a chapter 2 did get a little, like, I almost would probably need to reread chapter 2. I don't know yet. I might get lazy and not reread it. And also, whenever I say this title, I always think about that scene of Matilda, the movie adaptation, when her family's watching TV and eating dinner in front of the TV like they always do, but she's reading a book, and it's a library book, and it's this book, Moby Dick, my first thought is, if you're 10 and you're reading this book, which after having read the first couple chapters, it's like, well, maybe she could, or maybe she's reading an easy kid-friendly edition, or an easy easy edition, like a bridge version or something. But, I mean, it looked like a, very old edition of the book. An old hardback edition, because you did see it at the end. It's like the book she reads at the end of the movie. And so and he's like, what are you reading? And she says, Moby Dick. He's like, Moby, what? And she's explaining, it's a library book, and, it's a book, and he gets really mad, and basically, I'm fed up with all this reading, you're a wormwood, you start acting like one, and he takes a book from her, a library book, and rips it, and in a fit of anger, and grabs her face, makes her watch TV, and makes her stare at the TV. It's like, first of all, most parents would be so happy if their kid read a book. Most parents would be so pleased about that. And second of all, it's a library book. It's not her property. So, it's public property, so he has no right to destroy it. Not just, whether it's hers, so not only, I mean, he has no right to destroy it if it was hers, but it's still, if it's hers, he could probably make the argument it's mine by extension, although I don't know if Harry Wormwood is smart enough to realize that, but it's not even her property. It's public property. It's the library's, and the library would probably make you rebuy it. But of course, she's also a kid. She's 10 years old. I think she's supposed to be 10 at that point. It's like, really? You're gonna destroy this all because you have no respect for, it's because he has no respect for books. And I felt so bad for her in that moment. And that's actually the moment when she starts, it's the first time I think she uses her powers, her telekinesis, without realizing it. But yeah, so and like, it's one of those things where I get angry, but I also think it's funny at the same time. First of all, him being like, you have to watch TV, like a normal person. And his, and just, it's a funny, but also makes me angry kind of scene. But anyway, it's pretty impressive that she can read this book, at her age. Like, she definitely has a really high rating. She's at a really high rating level. But, I mean, what else is she gonna, considering that she experiences a lot of abuse, what else is she gonna do? It's her form of escapism. So, yeah, I do think the look of a book does really help when you're a little, like, you want to read a book but you're overwhelmed by it. A good edition would probably really helps. Okay, so next is a situation where it's almost better to watch it than to read it, but I have no way of watching these things. But the plays of Shakespeare in general is still intimidating to me. I tried to read the Scottish play, but of course it was bad time because I was reading when we were taking our own beach vacation a year ago, and it was just, I was sitting at the pool trying to read it, and the hot sun was blazing on me and everything, and the kids and my sister and brother-in-law were making, and my dad were making noises because they were excited and having fun, so it was like, it was not going to happen. And another situation where I probably brought way too many books with me, knowing that I probably would get sidetracked. But it's just, it was, again, this is another situation where sometimes reading with other people that understand the text would be helpful, but I don't know if that will happen ever. And I almost kind of regret buying this edition of it. I should have bought a different one. But I was thinking, all 4 of these plays will save me money and stuff. I mean, that's why I got those Barnes & Noble, why I had people buy me those big Barnes & Noble books. But I have such a hard time understanding, like, I kind of get the gist of what's going on in the scene, but knowing exactly what's going on is, like, I mean, even in a Jane Austen novel, sometimes I'm like, what the heck is going on? Are you upset about this? Are you being snarky to this character? You know, I'm trying to comprehend what was said, because, you know, in the huge, you know, page of paragraphs of words. And, you know, I'm just so, you know, and I've said this before about it in Jane Austen, sometimes I feel like, okay, just get to the point. Tell me if this person's just mad or being snarky or whatever. But then, you know, you wouldn't fall in love with Jane Austen's writing style. It would just, like, be a generic romance of today if she did that. Of course, you know, there was no way, because it's not, back then that's how it was. The same thing with Shakespeare. It's just, sometimes it's hard to follow, and I don't know exactly what's going on, even though it's a play. And it's just, so it's intimidating, because, again, this is a situation where it's the writing style itself. Even though it's a play and it would be easy, you know, it's still like, okay, what the heck? Okay, what's going on? What did this character say? You know, I mean, the language of Shakespeare is so beautiful, but it's just hard for me to follow and understand. Which is probably why a lot of times people recommend tips for reading classics is looking up, like, the Spark Notes or something, and just letting yourself get spoiled for the plot. Because just how people wrote, you know, in the early 20th, 19th or 18th century is very complicated and just, but yeah, I definitely want to read these, and I'm almost wondering if I should read King Lear before I read The Queens of Innis Lear, because that's kind of, like, inspired by King Lear. It's, you know, it's about his daughters and everything, which I don't know if in the original play, he probably had sons. But this is a collection of his tragedies: Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and the Scottish play. So I just, again, it's a situation where it's, the prose itself is very hard to, you know, understand exactly what is being said. I mean, I can get a little bit of the gist, but, you know, mostly it's like, okay, what did they say? Are they upset? Are they happy? Are they in lust with someone? Are they being snarky? So again, next is a nonfiction. There's there are a few nonfictions. I'm not sure if I could ever read them or not, or I know they're gonna take me. So this is one I bought from Black Castle Books. And when I first saw it, I did not realize it was a nonfiction, and it was a memoir, because it was not in the nonfiction section. So I'm guessing the people at Black Castle didn't realize this was a memoir either. And I don't know if this has anything to do with the movie Lawrence of Arabia. Maybe it does. I mean, like, when I talked about it with my mom after I bought it, she asked me what I bought. You know, I told her I think this has to do with Lawrence of Arabia. This is about this guy's experience going to, you know, to the Arabian countries. And I just, first off, it's nonfiction, you know, and I feel like with nonfiction I have to get in the right mood. And it's a chunker of a nonfiction. So it's like, I mean, I'm already in the middle of the Walt Disney, you know, biography. I still haven't picked that up. And it's just, I hope that I don't lose interest in it, because I want to read different types of books. I want to try books like this more often. I mean, it just seems so interesting. I am on chapter 3. But, I mean, I don't know how much I remember of the other chapters, so I may have to reread it. Luckily, I've only gotten to page 38, so that helps. But just, I don't know. Again, this is another situation where the subject matter, what it's about, I'm worried that I'm going to lose interest in it. So it's intimidating, because it's dense in, like, all these books, and I just don't know if I'm going to be able to really, I might lose interest, and I don't want that to happen. But I also feel like I have to be in the right frame of mind to really get it. Next is when this, again, it's is the prose itself. This is another epic poem. Um, this is all of this poet's work. This is the portable Dante. Probably not all of it, but this has Inferno, Paradiso. Oh wait, well, Purgatorio, and then Paradiso. And then it has the thing he wrote about his girlfriend. That his girlfriend, because he was married, but he also had a girlfriend. And I just, like, again, the whole epic poetry thing, I am always so apprehensive about that. But it does help that Jennifer Brooks did a video where she talked about they had recently, like a month or two ago, they read Inferno. And I think watching her discussion video with whoever, the other person, was really helpful. And I definitely understood what was going on because she has talked a lot about this one. And, so I knew I had a better idea of the first three stanzas or whatever, or the first three parts, or books or whatever. But I'm still nervous. And I'm worried because she has said that one of the other ones always gives people trouble as well. So, I mean, it's a poem, so it's even not that dense, but it's still, epic poetry is challenging. Yes, it doesn't look hard, but it's poetry. Poetry is very, symbolic and metaphorical, so it's like, you have to really try to understand it and concentrate and really think about what you're reading. So, but I really do want to read this because, it just, in the premise itself, like, the seven circles of hell, purgatory, the in-between, and then heaven. Such an interesting, like, and it can be whether you believe or not, it makes a great story, an interesting, engaging story, and like I said, it also reflects on the beliefs of society. So I definitely want to read this, and obviously I have started. And like I said, I think if you're struggling like I am, intimidated by books like this, then also look up the book and also watch other people discussing the book. Let yourself be spoiled. As someone I just watched yesterday, I think it was yesterday, like last night, they're talking about it, and they were like, talking about how it kind of, that their tip was letting yourself get spoiled. And I feel like in this case, I don't know, I can't really explain it, but books like this, I feel like it's not, it's not just for the sake of trying to understand it, but also, I feel like it's not that big of a deal getting spoiled for something like this. I don't think it will take away anything. So, let me go ahead and talk about the other epic poem that I have here that I have started, which I've gotten a lot farther along in this one, and that is John Milton's Paradise Lost, about the whole Adam and Eve story and in the war between God and the devil and stuff. And this is one that I do know a bit about this whole thing. I am Christian, and Supernatural kind of deals with the Christian mythology in its later seasons quite a lot. In fact, to the point where people don't like it. People did not like when they spent so much time on that for so many seasons. Although I did think, the whole idea of, I think, especially for those who are atheists, and, I think the whole idea of God being, like, this puppet master was it makes a good story, And when I definitely had a mixed reaction as someone who does believe in God and stuff like that, but then I thought, I was like, it's fiction. It's not a crime to get creative with fiction, and it's kind of funny, actually, the idea of people. Sometimes I wonder if people that are atheists already believe that that's how God is. Like, not exactly that, but maybe they see God in that way. But anyway, we're not going to go into that anymore. It's just a thought I had. But personally, isn't this artwork is so... It kind of reminds me of the opening in the Disney anime Jungle Book. Not the live action, but the original anime movie that came out in the 50s. Like, this kind of reminds me of the opening of that, with the color palette and everything. I'm guessing this is Eve, and whether you are a Christian or not, if you know the mythology, this is the whole Eve being tempted by the snake to take the fruit of knowledge, and it's not, God is like, you're not supposed to eat that. And the snake tempts her to take it. And so she ends up, and that enlightens her and Adam, and they are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. They are made, and that's supposed to be this whole thing. And then that explains why snakes crawl, like slither around. It explains it, that whole reason why God's punishment for the snake was that it would be forced to slither around on its belly. Although I was always thinking, when I hear about that part of the story, I always picture the snake having little tiny little feet, like a cartoon caterpillar or something. But anyway, again, this is such a weird epic poem, and this is one of those ones where I know a little bit more background on this, but at the same time, it's a little more challenging because I haven't watched any videos where they talk about Paradise Lost. But it's just, the whole concept of Paradise Lost is so interesting. I just want to understand it and get into it. But again, it's something where I wonder if the whole point, that I would not be able to comprehend it because of the way it's written, and just, I just, like I said, I really want to get into it. Okay, enough to talk about those two. I was going to talk about Priory of the Orange Tree and Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin, but that's just, it's their size. That one is their size, basically. But I did get pretty far on my hardback copy of Priory of the Orange Tree, but I think I'm going to have to reread it because it's been a couple years since I picked it up. Next is another situation where it's not the writing itself, but I'm worried that I would lose interest and get bored. I'm like absolutely terrified. I'm not gonna love it as much as people say. People say they love it. And then is Don Quixote, which I should put this in the queue. I have it on by Miguel Cervantes. I have it in D because of Dawn, but that's actually a title, so maybe it should be in the queues. I keep thinking about it, switching that. But this is about a guy who he has gotten so into that literature of old that where with knights and stuff that he loses his mind and sees himself as a knight. And he slays windmills and goes on adventures with his partner, and they recently, I remember there was actually an adaptation. There was an adaptation starring Adam Driver and, what is his name? The guy who played Elizabeth Swann's father, the governor. I don't remember the actor's name. He has also played the head sparrow in Game of Thrones in the show. And I'm trying to think what else he's done. I cannot remember his name, but he plays the figure who's the Don Quixote. And I want to read it, but I'm just worried I'm gonna lose interest. Oh, wait, this has an illustration. Let's pull this with illustrations. This is one of those things where I again, another situation where I want to pick it up right this second as I'm looking at it. But that's the other problem me in longer books, like tomes, is that there's so many that I want to pick up right now, and I can't settle on one. I just want to pick it up right this second. But then I know it's going to take me forever to read, so it's like, no, I shouldn't do that. I need to finish one first before I pick up another one, but it's taking me forever. So I'm worried. I want to read this, but I just hope that I love it, or at least enjoy it, at least like it as some of its others. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll be, paranoid or whatever, because I'm almost too easy to please, when it comes to books. If I have just no interest whatsoever, then I will never buy it. I will keep passing over it, or eventually, I'm usually, if I'm gonna buy a book, I'm usually gonna, I'm interested in by some capacity. So yeah, this is a situation where I just am very nervous. And it's a long book. It's like, let's see, how many pages? This is in the 900s. Well, 800s. That's counting, like, for the notes at the end, that's further reading. But, this is... I'm not gonna read that part, I always skip that. So, 891 pages. So it's close to 900 pages. If you don't talk about all the extra stuff at the end, like the, and but it's a chunker. And like I said, am I gonna love it? I don't know. I mean, I probably will. I'm probably paranoid. I'm probably worried for nothing. But it's a dense book. Okay. Next is one I have started and had to restart again. And that is Ulysses by James Joyce. Now, this is in the case, again, of the prose itself. Because, this one, it's hard to follow. I have started reading this, and it's just so hard. It's very hard to follow the narrative. And, leaf by leaf, Chris from Leaf by Leaf confirmed this, that the writing of this is very all over the place. Like, the author gets really creative and has a little bit too much fun with the writing, and I imagine a lot of people who've attempted to read this because of that do not like it and have got personally upset about it because of that. I mean, I feel like it's just funny because people don't like writers that come off as pretentious to them. And sometimes I actually like pretentious writers because it's almost amusing, and I almost like to see if I can get into it. It's like a challenge to me to get into something that's considered pretentious. But it's so hard to follow along with it because, like, the writing seems like it almost flows like regular prose at one point, but then it starts to feel like, I can't think of it. I can't think of the term. That kind of non-stop, no pause, just like kind of like kind of like the writing style of Virginia Woolf, where I cannot think of the term, where it just keeps going, and there's no paragraph separation or anything. I mean, it's like reading someone's thoughts. It's just hard to follow along and figure out, and I just keep trying to find the right moment when I can concentrate on this book, and it's very hard, especially as someone who's had the bad habit of staying up a little too late. And my brain is tired the next day, so I'm gonna, I keep wanting to try. Like, obviously I started to try again, recently, and I sort of get a vague idea of what's going on in the moment as I'm reading, but I still don't 100% understand it. And again, I think it's just the prose and how crafty, Joyce is with his writing, how he really gets into, like, doing all these different types of, writing styles, and I do like this cover. I don't know, I like this cover, but I do, Next is another epic poem. So I read the Odyssey, and I absolutely love the Odyssey. I had the cloth-bound edition of it, and it read like a regular novel, but it had a fairy tale-esque feel to it. It's about a guy coming home after being at war for 10 years, and he runs into all these various stops and stuff, and detours, and then, like, he, stops for long periods of time and stays in different places for a long time, and then eventually, and when he comes home, he finds out that his wife has a lot of guys that are vying for her affections because they think he's dead, and and Athena's encouraging him to do stupid shit and everything, and So, yes, technically I probably shouldn't have read this one first, but I was like, I just for some reason decided to read the Odyssey first. And it was really fun. I enjoyed it, and I wasn't, and I knew a little bit because I've seen the movie Troy, with Eric Bana, Brad Pitt, and Orlando Bloom. Um, so I kind of know about the whole Trojan War and Trojan War between them and the Trojans and the Greeks and all that stuff. And that's what this one is about. And just like with Shakespeare and Paradise Lost and Don and the Divine Comedy, it's the fact that this is an epic poem. It's just sometimes it's hard to understand what's going on, and you just want to almost be like, I almost get that way when it comes to Jane Austen sometimes. I definitely can understand Jane Austen better than this kind of stuff, but it's like, okay, what just happened? Is the person being sarcastic? What are they doing? Are they declaring their love for a person or their hate for a person? Do they want revenge? Did they figure out what this person did? And you just almost, as a modern reader, I almost want to be like, okay, get to the point. And I still love it. And one of the things I love about, despite the fact that sometimes I can't sometimes I get lost in the words and don't know what's going on, I still love Jane Austen's writing. And with this, it's not only very old, but also very, it's a poem. So, and poetry is hard enough as it is to try to understand and analyze it. But I did flip through a little bit recently and it's, it's actually, this translation puts it in a more modern English kind of way. So I could probably get into it a lot more and understand it better, which I think that's what I need. I need a modern translation that turns it into, yes, keep the format, obviously, but do in a way that's modern writing style that I can follow along, that I can understand what is going on in the scene. Even if it kind of, slowly drags out the scene in the moment or describing the person's feelings in that moment. But yeah, it's just, again, it's all about the format itself that is intimidating about this one. But I have looked, and maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe this looks like a good translation. A translation that will really help. I just noticed that cover. I never noticed it. I've looked at it a million times now, but I've never really noticed it. I've never really looked at the image on the cover. But yeah, I think the key to this kind of stuff is good translation, and then, as I said before, sometimes you just need to look it up and get your history. Okay, and then this was actually something that Leaf by Leaf encouraged me to read, indirectly, of course, because he doesn't know me personally. I'm just someone who just started watching his channel. I've been watching it for a little while now, and I just started watching some of his videos again, and he just does I would love to be his student if he was a college professor, which is funny. A lot of people ask, why is he not a college professor? And I think he told the story of how he did apply, but it didn't work out. But I would love to listen to his lectures if he were a professor at a school, because it's so entertaining to listen to him. And, and he's just very fascinating. You can tell he knows the stuff. He does his research. He understands what he's talking about. And just the way he talked about the recognitions, just by William Gass and the author himself. His other known book is J.R., which all I can think of is that was the name of the dog my parents had when I was a baby. Which is kind of sad because I never really got to meet J.R. I did, but as a baby, and I don't remember it. Charlotte will probably barely remember our dogs, which is kind of sad to think about, but let's not go there. But this is, it was just really interesting to hear him, but as I'm reading, it's dense, and, the writing style is not too hard to read, but still, it's a lot to read, and really that's what it is. It's so much to read, and sometimes there's sentences that I don't entirely comprehend, But, I mean, it's not like as in, something like, the Iliad or Ulysses. It's just, it's a lot closer to modern works. I mean, I think this was published in the 50s originally. Let me look up the copyright date. And this is a situation where I want to read these kinds of books because they're so different. Yeah, 1955. Yeah, 1955. And wow, this guy lived, even in the 90s. Which I guess he would have been my grandparents' age. But yeah, this first was originally published in 1955. And, it's just so dense and thought-provoking. It's not like fantasy where it's action-packed and exciting and like someone's trying to look for some force of evil or some weapon or whatever, some magic source of power or whatever. It's just this guy living his life and how, he feels like he can never paint his own original work and he spends his whole life restoring and recreating already original work and claiming, and some people, leading people, not denying that it isn't his, and how you can, and the idea of nothing is original anymore, and just people do not really appreciate art anymore when it's original, which is funny considering what's going on with Disney right now and how Disney keeps reproducing like live action versions, which I like live actions. I'm usually entertained. I find them very fun and entertaining, but still, I mean, is like I can understand people's frustration with that, and that's kind of what this talks about. How people are just no longer original anymore, and how it's so hard to create unique art anymore, and how he becomes caught up in the system, so to speak. He makes a deal with the devil because it's the only way for him to be successful. And the philosophicalness of art, and and it's interesting because it's just really interesting to read. It's just dense and very thought-provoking, and I'm gonna spend a lot of time with this. And again, my biggest problem with these science books is time, taking the time to spend with them, when I could be reading millions of other. And I can watch those tip videos on tips until the cows come home, but they basically all say the same thing. Sometimes it's just fun to watch those videos and look at the people's TBRs on big books that they want to read. So this is on my list, and I'm hoping that my video will bring attention to this book. Because I definitely think people, I want it to be acknowledged, because yeah, I haven't finished it, but I do really find it really fascinating. And like I said, if you're someone that is really frustrated with Disney right now, how they're not being original and mass producing things, you might actually be really interested in what this book talks about. But yeah, so it's intimidating because of, again, its size and the fact that it goes so deep and it's so thought-provoking and will take so much of my time that it's just, I know I need to sit down and just take the time and really focus on it. Next is historical fiction, which really, again, this is just because of size, and also kind of, will I be able to really get into and appreciate what this is about without getting bored, and that is Pillars of the Earth. This is a beloved book, along with this other book, is that series that he's continuing right now, which is the Century series, and I still have not continued to read Fall of Giants. I mean, I did like it. It's just, again, another situation where it's a big book. I mean, one of the things I like about these is that I can take them with me places. They're easy to travel with and they're cheap. But I'm starting to lose interest in that aspect of them as well. But I just, again, everyone loves this, but I'm worried that I'm not going to love it, that I'm going to be bored with it. All I know is this is about building a church. And this is one of those situations where people keep telling you that, they'll tell you that simple aspect of the plot, and they understand you might not At first, that might not draw your attention, but it's so much, people keep saying it's so much more than just building this church. And I know that, I believe them, but I'm just worried. I'm very nervous about that. But yeah, I want to try it because I both this one and the Century series, so I want to finally read both his series that I have. It's just I haven't taken the time to pick it up yet. And then we have War and Peace, Tolstoy's magnum opus. I don't know if this is actually going to be considered as magnum opus or not, but look at that junker. It's over 1,000 pages. It's probably around the same length as Count of Monte Cristo, which I'm currently listening to on audiobook because I just had to start over because I wasn't picking up the book even though I got to page 999. I was not picking it up, so I was like, I'm gonna start over and listen to it from the audiobook, which I probably could have just gone straight to to where I was in the book, at least the chapter, but I decided to start over because I feel like I might not remember everything. But yes, this is an epic war story that focuses on the war, during the war, and right before the war, and after the war. And it's a family saga, and it's just, I've loved it. I like it so far, but it's a long book, and it's, again, a lot of these books, they're intimidating, and, in the Caroline Marie Reads and Emmy from Emmy Reads, I think that's her channel name, are doing Tolstoy versus Dickens debate. And they're each reading one of his books in each of their books in publication order, and I think they just finished reading this one. So it's like, I wanted to do it, but then I was reading multiple books at the same time. It's a lot, and it's dense. And so far I like it, but again, I think I also need to get in the right mindset when I'm reading it, and my brain has to be really turned on right now and just really focused. And it also gets very frustrating with Russian literature when Russian literature has this, I know Russian literature is very much, they will say the first and the last name, which I read something that kind of explained all that to me, but I don't remember the actual explanation. Either I read something or my dad, because my dad has traveled to Russia a couple times, so he knows a little bit. But yeah, it's a lot, and I just need to be really focused. So again, it's size. Size is a big deal. In this case, size does matter. And then the last two, so the last two are recent purchases, and I decided to go ahead and put them on there. So again, I think this is supposed to be a non-fiction. I'm getting more and more into ancient literature, and I'm worried that I'm gonna, defeat myself. I'm not enjoying modern literature, ancient literature as much, but I found this was so interesting and so intriguing, and I bought it. And it's just, I don't know if I want to love it, and I think I probably will, but it's still a lot, and I don't know, and I'm worried that I won't be able to comprehend everything. So that's why it's intimidating. This one is intimidating because, like I said, what if I can't comprehend it all? What if I get confused or whatever? So, which means I think I should at least do a little bit of research. So that's the histories by, I don't even know how to say, Herodotus. I'll have to look that up or something. But, so this is, I think, non-fiction. This is my stupid thing keeps doing this where I'm just nervous I'm going through all this trouble and it's not gonna upload, but because of that. So really, this is literally a new thing. I haven't even looked at it, but like I said, I'm just worried it's gonna be confusing for me. I can't even say the guy's name. And the last one, this is one of those situations where I've heard some negative things about the author himself. and I want to read it. I don't want that to drive me away because, and this is a used copy, by the way, so, like, for those of you who are, like, are like, I don't want to give this person money because they're a jerk or whatever, this is a used copy. This is from the roast office. And, Chris from Leaf by Leaf has read this author's work and says sounds like it's really interesting. I don't know if he absolutely loves it, but I think he does. I think he really enjoys it. And but the author himself is a dick, an arrogant dick, essentially. And, but I want to try his work. And again, I bought this used, but no, the money's not going to him. The fact that I bought this book. And I'm just interested in it. And it's called The Corrections by John Franzen. His other most famous work is, I can't remember what it's called. But it's, on the cover is the guy with the suit and everything, but his head is cut off or whatever. But it's just, the idea of this seems really dog-eared. I hope the person finished it before they, clearly it's been well read. And it sounded really interesting, like, the premise and stuff, but like I said, first of all, the guy doesn't have the best reputation, and this is more that I'm, and part of me feels kind of, like, and again, like, I'm just, and, a lot of times he seems like that type of author that would be like, well, it's your fault, you don't understand it. I bet he's that kind of person that is like, well, it's your fault if you can't comprehend it. You're an idiot. But, I don't care. I still want to check it out. I still want to try to read it. Like, and, I mean, the only time I've ever decided to walk away from a book just because the author's a dick was the whole, Sword of Truth series. That's probably not what the actual series is called. But that was because I hadn't picked it up in a while. So, like, you know what? I'm going to just use this more of a reason not to continue with it. Because I was feeling guilty that I had picked up the next book and it was taking me forever. And then just Daniel Green did a video critiquing the author and stuff. And it was really entertaining video. And so that was one of those situations where it's a series and it was like, you know what, I haven't picked it up for a while, so it's no big deal if I don't continue it. But yeah, it's intimidating mostly because, like I said, the author has a reputation, and it's not positive, and I still want to read it. And like I said, I feel a little self-conscious because I guarantee you the author would be that type of person who would tell me it's my fault that I don't understand it. But I probably would, because I think I'm pretty smart, But yeah, so this one, it's really, and it doesn't even look that bad, size-wise. So it's more just me being self-conscious but those are all the big books that are intimidating, but I want to read them. I want to try to read them. And I think I'm a lot more capable than I realize, So what are some books that they look intimidating to you? And even if you start reading them, they still feel intimidating, or like even books that you've started to read them, but they still feel kind of intimidating. Because some of these here were books that clearly, as you probably could tell, that I had started them. Share in the comments below. If you like this video and weren't too bored, please give a thumbs up, click subscribe, and click the bell notification below if you want to be notified when I post new videos. I hope you are doing well and staying safe and, and enjoying your reading. Alright, bye!